Yeah, well, I mean, that's one thing I can comment on.
I had a hard time with the first it's hard. I don't the one gets a lot better than it's more like your like relevance of the nervous it's kind of no way around
You guys mind if we videotape this? I told him earlier that I was gonna audition people for the loudest noise in the room, and then I would have the job to kind of cue the whole place in quiet. What I'm gonna do is just frame this section just a little bit. You all have been buried in clinical anatomy or pathophys for almost 4 weeks now, and you have gotten so used to looking at cadavers and taking those tests that you almost can lose sight of why you wanted to be a PA in the first place. And this has always been a really good part of the curriculum, and it actually kind of launches us into another whole section, which will be in next week and really kind of go forward, which is your introduction to patient care. You know, what do we do with that? And you will all know that every person is not you, and it's very good and proper that they are not. What you have to work on as a healthcare provider is learning how to take care of patients, and the first step is meeting a patient at their point of need, which is listening and letting them define circumstances, what their need is. Don't try to do what you want to do, listen to what they need and work it back in the other direction. So we have a nice panel here. Professor LaVictoire is going to introduce you to all of them, and this is a very open session where you can ask questions. This will not be tested, okay? That's important because everybody's put your pencils down. I need you to listen. Look and listen and engage. If you look, listen, and engage, you will get what you need to get for now. This is the first step to becoming a patient care provider and interacting with patients. So that's all I'm going to say. I'll let you take it from there.
Boy, I just felt that sigh of relief when Dr. Burton said this isn't testable. So this really is something that I enjoy doing just with my background. It's a little bit different panel every year based on availability, but I think I would like to let the panel introduce themselves, starting with Russ Tall, Chief.
Sure. I'm Russ Hall, Chief from Osage, and I'm the Director of Student Engagement, Inclusion, and Multicultural Programs. I'm Tom Burton. I've been in the Plaza District at Pat Granny's Bazaar and at David as a both like weird folk art and stuff.
I'm Lee Brown, University of Michigan.
I'm Henry LaVictoire. To hold that for at least 10 minutes.
I'm Amanda Francis Various.
So let's go ahead and start with Lee here, and let's think about, to kind of start talking about your experiences with healthcare in your past.
Okay, so I have a myriad of different experiences. As a kid, didn't go to the doctor pretty much for anything. Really no need to look at something to be all right. So having a really experience with PAs, doctors, holding bodies, talking shots, this is all represented painful things that I shot or like the dentist was a doctor to me as a kid, right? And that just still represented things that didn't want to come out. And then outside of that, that was my experience from birth to 12. No doctor's visits after that. Multiple sprained ankles, multiple this, multiple that. Probably some significant issues going on. No doctors involved in it at all, which is typical, especially in the fact when I think there's well, there A, there's a lack of access, and then B, it's emergency room visits that's probably what given the experience, doing on the direct level. So when I joined the military, and it's pretty much all the time. I was a flyer at ALX, so in order to fly, you have to be healthy. You really, like, if I have a runny nose, and you have to go see a doctor to make sure that everything else was okay. Primarily because you have to get outside of it, because of the different altitudes, their altitudes, and how that affects your ears and eardrums and hearing, all of that. So not to knock the doctors, but that's also free, right? So then I got out of the military, and I had no idea what to do now. Access, yeah, it's all available when I have insurance. I have no idea how to use it and stuff. So if I have a problem, I go to urgent care, and they say take this, and you're going to be okay. They don't tell me what was wrong and how to prevent it, and what I need to do, and I go and get a checkup. And it's not a diagnosis for anything, but you should try probably take these pills here, or you should probably do this stuff here, or, you know, there's no real communication. It's always been my biggest issue with my interaction with all the providers, is that they're just not talking to me. I'd much rather sit down in their office than go to the examination or have a conversation with them about what my issues are. Then we can go to the examination room and I can roll and we can do all that, you can look and see and touch and pry and poke all you need to, but kind of talk to me first. Let me know. And then once we're done talking, tell me what's wrong with me. Right? Because I don't know. That's why I'm here. And you're the expert. I need you to tell me what's wrong with me. Don't say it could be this or it could be that. Tell me what's wrong with me. If you don't know, say it. Because all you're going to do is just leave me with a bunch of anxiety after the fact. I'm just going to freak out. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to die tomorrow, basically. So, I mean, that's pretty much been my overall experience when it comes to healthcare.
Very good, Lee, thank you. Russ, you want to talk a little bit about your experiences?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Shawnee. Well, I ended up there. I bounced around a lot. And so in terms of healthcare, I was growing up through the Indian Health Service system, which is a government agency. It began after 67 tribes were relocated to Oklahoma. How many of you are from Oklahoma? Okay, so you know we've got 39 that are left here that are formally recognized in Oklahoma. The rest of the tribes either made their way home or they were absorbed by other tribes. The Delaware, for example, were absorbed by the Cherokee. I'm Osage. Our reservation is up on the Kansas border between Bartlesville and Ponca City. So we actually are the only reservation per se in Oklahoma in that we are a federal reserve. And that came about because we purchased our land from the Cherokee. And that's unique in Oklahoma because so many tribes were forcibly removed here. There were some treaty negotiations, but the majority of the tribes that were relocated here came under horrible conditions. They came from as far north as Canada, the Iroquois Seneca nation here that's from upstate New York. You know, these Native people were nomadic around here, and so the movement was expected. It was just a part of life, and so to be relocated and put into a territory that was smaller than what we consider counties now was really different for Indian people and very challenging in a lot of different ways. The federal government provided rations after the Native tribes had been established in a particular area, and that was lard, flour, seeds for planting, and different kinds of protein, more in vegetables though, because there were animals. I mean, most of the tribes hunted and fished once they got here. And what happened was that fry bread happened, which is amazing. Have you ever had fry bread? It's delicious. However, very high in fat and cholesterol, and that became a staple for Indian people, and it still is for a lot of people. We have an Indian taco sale tomorrow, as a matter of fact, here on the campus, but it's a delicacy. It's like cake. You know, you don't eat it every day, and if you do, then some serious health disparities occur, and we have a very high level of health disparities in Indian country, pretty much across the board. It's elevated in every way, including obesity, diabetes, and heart, cardio issues, lung cancer due to smoking. And, you know, it's something that we were born into as my generation came about. I was born in 1970. And so up until that point, there was, you know, there were a lot of full-blood American Indians. I'm mixed blood. The full-blood Indians had the most difficult time, and there's a notion of genetic memory. Wherever you stand on that, that's your prerogative. But the elders that are still around now and saw that transition feel like that they weren't prepared genetically for that dramatic change in location and in diet. And so as time has gone on, we have different kinds of issues related to, like, me being mixed blood. There's just some simple kinds of things related to teeth, for example, and the teeth either fitting the mouth or not. And it's a really interesting situation my daughter has. She has really big teeth and a beautiful smile, but we had to give her braces to adjust to that. And it goes back, you can just look at the pictures going back in our family history. You can see big smiles, big teeth, but we have, just a time where right now the majority of Indian people are mixed bloods. So I grew up in a system that was trying to straddle those worlds, trying to find a way that they could provide health services for such a diverse population of Indian people from throughout North America, and then also from different tribal backgrounds and different genetic backgrounds. It's very complex now to see. The Indian Health Service, being a government agency, has layers and layers of bureaucracy, and those checks and balances are there for reasons, but they stand in the way of healthcare for a lot of people. So whenever I would get sick, my mom was a teacher, and she would have to take off, get a substitute teacher, and then we would go into IHS as early as possible. So if I had woke up with strep throat, then it was a first come, first served basis at our clinic. So we would have to go in as early as possible to sign in so that we could get seen. And if that didn't happen, if we didn't get there in time, we would sit there all day. I mean, all day in the lobby. My mom would go get Sonic and bring it back, and we would eat in the lobby. And when 3 o'clock rolled around, if we hadn't been seen, then we had to just go home and then come back the next day. So I didn't get seen a lot. And what was really interesting was that I had gone there one time with what I think was strep throat, just something going on here. And we went back 3 days and never got seen, and then I got well. These things cycle through your system. And so that is pretty common for the Indian experience in IHS because they're very understaffed, and the federal agency, they're limited on funding that they can put toward their health care. So there were way more patients than doctors to be seen. And, consequently, like we would just quit go. It's not worth it to go and try to get seen at the clinic because besides having doctors that are spread way too thin, that whole experience of sitting there with a whole room full of people, too, it would be a full lobby as people were trying to get seen, elders, and there was no preference given based on whatever was going on. It was based entirely on the order that you signed in. If you made an appointment, if you did happen to have a primary, you would wait at least a month, but usually 2 before you could be seen. That's still the case, and fortunately I ended up getting a primary, and it still takes, about a month to be seen, but I can at least plan for that. Because I had rheumatic fever when I was a kid, and so I was at the hospital a lot. And, I have a heart murmur as a result of that. And so I have to have a continuous sort of a treatment with, beta blockers and those kinds of things that can help keep my heart rate down. Because I average about 110. My blood pressure at one point was 180 over 110, and then my heart rate was at 110. And went up to 126 before I was put on beta blockers. But it was like that for years, but I was never treated for it. My vitals were always checked from the time that I was a little kid, but nobody did anything about it. And then when all of a sudden a doctor helped me with that, it changed my whole life. Every part of my life changed, and for the better. So, it's just a test of endurance and perseverance to work through the IHS system. there are clinics all over the United States and in Oklahoma, quite a few. And what we're seeing now, which is super cool, is that tribes are starting to diversify their economic development in a way that can provide independent health care. So we have these hybrids now of IHS and independent tribal support. And so the Citizen Potawatomi Nation in Shawnee is one of those. They're not completely detached from IHS because there are grants that benefit them. But if you've ever been to Shawnee and you go by Firelake Grand and you see all the grocery store, the gas station, you see economic development there that's leading to the chief, Rocky Barrett, trying to establish the Citizen Potawatomi Nation as its own town. And that's amazing. That we haven't seen that before, and that would be unprecedented, and the health care that is there is also unprecedented. The Citizen Potawatomi are very progressive. We are very progressive in the north. The Cherokees are very progressive, and so we are seeing some improvement to the access to health care and the treatment in health care. So over the years, we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. But IHS also provides opportunities for people like you to work in one of those clinics in a loan forgiveness program. If any of you are going to take out loans, then you can register with IHS to work in a community for 2 years to help pay off your loans at $20,000 a year, in addition to whatever salary that you get, and contribute to this improvement with the trend that we're seeing now with Indian preference. But, you know, the Indian population is pretty big in Oklahoma, like almost 10%. And that's really high for a state because so many tribes are located here. But in the healthcare world, it's even smaller. And so the native health practitioners need, I mean, they have to have support from non-native practitioners, and particularly people that are looking at holistic medicine, or looking at is it DO, osteopaths? Yeah, this sort of holistic medicine approach is really preferred. The less medication, the better in anybody's case. And so that's a really cool trend that I see out there. So anyway, there are just ways for you to participate in that community. And I have a friend who's a doctor, and he said that if he would have known about a PA program, he definitely would have gone that route, because doctors have so much paperwork and insurance and red tape. He said, I kind of want to go back to school and go to PA school, because he has a PA working for him. And he says, so envious of PA. So you guys are in a really unique position to make a difference without having to deal with some of the bureaucracy of doctors.
That's some really good information, Russ. That's really, really interesting. Henry, would you like to talk just a little bit about it?
Sure. I think I'll probably want to touch on like the fact that sometimes for some people finding a provider that actually will give them care that they need is really difficult for people in the trans community. I've definitely had that experience where I get in with the doctor and then the things that I'm trying to get done they're not willing to help me with, because they either lack experience and knowledge about these issues, or they just they have an opposition to it. And so that's kind of been a little bit of my experience, but for the most part, I mean, I thank my mom, but I've been guided very well through this system, because it is kind of a labyrinth whenever you're trying to get these things done in a conservative state. So yeah, if anyone has any like direct questions to me, I know I'm the only non-cis male up here, so if you guys have any direct questions.
Can you explain the phrase cis male?
Cis male just means that I was not or I was assigned female at birth, so that just means that I was not assigned male at birth.
But you identify as male now. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for anybody on the panel? Anybody? Yeah.
Do they have any sort of supplemental, sort of traditional medicine that the IHS system work with? Like some sort of tribal medicine person?
Yeah, pretty much all tribes have multiple medicine people to go to. And, back in the 1920s, there was just pretty much primary medicine treatment by medicine people. But, with the non-native kinds of illnesses, such as tuberculosis, that they were dealing with, there was just a necessity to go to a non-native doctor. So we still have medicine in. I was this morning referring one to a funeral service that's happening in Elmore City, and they wanted to have somebody there to just provide that sort of a thing for the person. And so, yeah, we still have a lot of medicine people that are, just an integral part of the community and wellness.
Tom, would you like to relate some?
Yeah. I guess what makes my perspective interesting is I'm a gay male from a rural area, little town called Luther. And most of what I know about medicine and like that type of stuff, and like going to hospitals, we had the UAW. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the United Auto Workers Association. It's like a really good insurance program, but if we don't ever use it, it doesn't matter. So growing up in the country, we never went to the hospital a whole lot. It was like a lot of home remedies type stuff, unless you like cut off a finger or like bust your head open or something. And so growing up, it was always taken care of, but we always had like this general distrust of organized medicine. Like we weren't encouraged to like go to doctors and stuff. So like coming to the city, like starting my own life, getting away, like going to college, when I lost this, my insurance, when I turned like 26 or whatever, to the UAW, I was just like out there to win, like better not get sick. And so I accidentally was working in Guthrie on a farm and cut off the tip of my finger. Had to go to Edmond Regional. It might be a different hospital now, but it used to be Edmond Regional. And for them to sew the tip of my finger back on, no insurance was like $700. And then the nurses were trying to force the x-ray on me. And I'm like, no, I don't want the x-ray because it's giving me extra money. The problem, I'll take care of it later instead of paying for the x-ray. And it's one of those things that ended up, that's some of my only exposure to medicine, is having a bill collector try to get the settlement, which I was paying $100 at a time. So it's not like really encouraging from my point of view,
You're why am I going to want to repeat this experience?
Yeah.
This negative of your part of it.
Yeah.
You probably got the tip of your finger over so.
Yeah, I did. But it's like a general distrust, and it's like, my dad was born in 1945, my mom was born in like 55. So it's like, my parents are from a completely different generation than all my friends' parents, and they didn't go to the doctor. Like, if you couldn't take care of it with apple cider vinegar, or garlic capsules, there was no need. I mean, that's kind of my general experience with like medical practitioners. Oh, and I guess as a gay male or gay man, it's like the thing that to go get tested for a full panel of STDs anywhere that's not the clinics that's provided by Oklahoma County. What's interesting, there's only 2 left that actually do a full panel screening for like $30 walk-in. But anywhere else, there's like $300. And if you don't get in when the Oklahoma County, when they have it open, like you're screwed. It can be like a lot of stuff that actually happen from it. And those programs are there for a reason, but they've become so inaccessible to people if you don't have a car, if you're low income, just stuff like that.
How do you know when the panel is open, and what do you mean by that?
I just mean a full screen. It's not what they call when they test for
Yeah, but
honesty.
how do you know when, is there a certain time that they?
Oh, yeah, you have to call it. You have to call it 6 7 in the morning when they open and get an appointment before they fill up, and they'll fill up by 8. You have to call between 7 and 8 when they open. And then they'll be full by 8, because it's, I mean, it's really, there's only 2 left in Oklahoma County. that
And
do
how
this,
how far away is the one that you go to from you?
Oh, probably 10 miles. And then the other one's even further away than that. You
There's
know,
no bus transfer, is it a?
not south side.
Yeah, so then when you get, and this sounds very similar to Russ's situation with having to go and physically sign in. So there's no triage type situation. So it's like would you have special preference when you call if you're some kind of symptomatic or something?
No,
Would that
they
make a
don't.
difference?
If you are symptomatic of something, it's like they don't care. You have to get it in then, and if you miss it, it's going to be a week later or whatever.
And as a gay male, how often do you go through this testing?
Oh, if you're responsible, you should get, like I said, every 3 months.
Every 3 months?
They say, but you don't need, unless, I should say what you need, but if you've been, unless you've been exposed for a fact and you don't need like a full panel screening. You just get tested for HIV every 3 months. That's just a modern world. That's just being honest, being truthful, be responsible. It can be very problematic if you're a lower income. I don't know how Hispanic people do it, how they get access, low-income Hispanic people, how they get access to medicine and that kind of stuff. I don't really, unless it's through Oklahoma County,
What type of people are usually at the clinic whenever you go?
Low-income Hispanic people, typically, or low-income white people, typically. That's kind of my experience. South side, there's one over, I'm trying to think. It's over that little medical complex over on the south side kind of by the big hospital that's over there.
South, what is that, Integra South?
Yeah.
Except 44th and Western.
Yeah, west,
And then
yeah.
The other one is the county health department out there at Northeast 23rd.
They don't, you can't even walk in that one anymore. The first time I ever got tested, that's where I went. I want to say in the early 2000s, when it first came out. And there you had to go in and fill out, make sure. It was a little bit different. They just made it more inaccessible. And I know that's probably to monetary reasons and stuff, but it's just very peculiar. It's something that people need, especially low income. It's very inaccessible.
Well, even the
that's
fact
kind of my
that you call
experience.
before,
Yeah.
it makes it to where you have to have a phone.
Yeah.
Or access to a phone.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case.
No, not for everyone.
Wow. Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, throw something out there.
No, what I'm hearing from a common thread between all 4 of us is that there's a significant amount of stress just getting to it.
Yeah.
Let alone dealing with whatever we're dealing with on a personal level, but just trying to get that taken care of. So that before we see you, we're stressed out, let alone getting to you.
Yeah.
Just like,
I want to throw a question out there for anybody can pick it up, but I really would like to hear your answers to it if you can, just so the students get a feel for what is a healthcare provider doing in a room with a patient. So from your perspective, tell them the worst encounter you've had where you believe the provider did not get you either sexually or ethnically or in any other way. They didn't get you. How did they talk to you? Tell me what happened, or just communicate to them what happens in the room. And I don't care if it's shocking or not, but I think they need to hear so they can get an insight into how they come across when they go talk to a patient that's not like them.
Well, the doctor, when I got took my finger off, he was kind of with the nurses, and I was like, "Hey, Dr. Mingo, I know my rights. You can't force that on me." And he kind of looked at me. And so I heard him go out in the hallway and say, "It's his right to refuse the X-ray. You can't make him take it." So, I guess another example of that.
It's like a negotiation.
Your finger's cut off.
Yeah. There's no nerve damage, but it didn't
No
hurt.
reason.
Yeah, it didn't hurt.
Well, actually, there was a reason they wanted the X-ray. They wanted to make sure there was no bony involvement, which could have resulted in an osteomyelitis. So, just saying, just throwing that out there. But you're exactly right, Tom, you do have the right to refuse that, especially if you're in a cash pay situation. You know, and the only reason you wound up in an emergency room is because you can't take your fingertip to an urgent care, that's a
Yeah.
totally different situation, and have them sew it back on at a much, much lesser expense to you. But they're an urgent care, they have the right to refuse you
Yeah.
if you don't have the copay or whatever they demand up front.
Well,
Yes.
he asked, I mean, probably the worst example I can think of personally is our doctor, through my mother and father, I probably shouldn't say any names, but he was over at an emergency after-hours place over in Edmond. One of those, you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
And that's where his practice is located. And they have so many people, these older people that have worked for these giant corporations for all these years, and now they're all on massive amounts of insurance. So the doctors kind of just write them off. A lot of these doctors see 50 patients a day through the UAW insurance providers and that kind of stuff. So my mom kept going in because she didn't feel well, and she was lost like 50 pounds in a year. This went on for like 3 years, and the doctor was just like, oh, you're fine. It's like kind of really just kind of like talk, never really addressed it. And I don't know if it's such a high volume thing, but she ended up dying of lymphoma, like stage 4, and they didn't catch it early on. I caught it at stage 4, and it's like, and I can't blame the doctor for it, but I mean, before she died, she was like, Dr. Sedan missed that for 3 years. Like, he missed it, and he just never even looked at me when I came in. And I think that might have something to do with just high volume, low income people on one giant provider. You know, kind of
Kind of feeling
cycle.
like an assembly line.
Yeah, this
like-
assembly line of food to get them off the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my experience.
Continue. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask, did they try to explain to you why they wanted the x-ray, or did they just say they needed the x-ray?
That's the need X-ray.
So nobody explained to you that, we just wanted to make sure you're not gonna get an infection in your.
Well, he told me it was for nerve damage, but I'm like, if it was nerve damage, I feel it right now.
Okay. Wow, there's some, you know, some high quality communication out there.
What you're saying,
Right.
conversation. To kind of go back to what you were saying, I've definitely been in the experience where I've, my pronouns might have been disrespected and it's very uncomfortable, especially when you're feeling like, okay, I have to appease to this person because I'm trying to get what I need medically from them, but at the same time, they're not, it's like, it's kind of just like, okay, like, the reason I'm here is because of this, and I'm trying to get this done, so it's kind of like an uphill battle, you know, when you're like, can't even get you to call me the right pronouns, that sort of thing, and just to like, kind of talk about a little bit, you talk about the anxiety, the stress, and everything that's associated with going to the doctor and all that. For me, talking about, like, coming here and talking to you guys, I'm not trying to get anything out of you guys. Like, I'm not trying to be like, okay, well, I need my hormone levels checked to make sure that everything's good so that, you know, like, I can act, I feel like a normal person. But when I'm going to see a medical provider, I am trying to get something out of them. And I'm talking about all these things that are as personal as you can get, basically. As personal, if you're exploring your gender identity, I don't think it gets much more personal. Like, you're deciding, you're figuring this shit out, and it is a step-by-step process for you that looks totally different from anyone else's process. And what's parallel to that, you have the social part of it, but you also have the medical side of it, where you have this journey that you're taking medically. So through hormones, through surgeries if you want it. And all of these things are like huge obstacles. And when I talk to any, like last night I was hanging out with a trans man, and he is 21 and probably about 2 years behind me as far as where he's at with everything, just started hormones. And I'm trying to start the conversation that I know he wants to have with me about these sorts of things, like kind of like a key to a door, where it's like, how do I get through this door? Like, how do I get on this other side where, like, I get all these people around me in my social life that are accepting me and are saying, like, they're validating my gender identity. But I also have this really dysphoric part that's going on where I'm feeling so uncomfortable and I need medical attention to feel better, to deal with my depression, to deal with my anxiety, to deal with all of these things that are coming along with walking through life and not feeling validated in your gender identity. And it's a tough thing. It's like even starting that conversation with him about like, hey, like maybe these are your first steps for trying to get your top surgery that you want. You know, even saying those things to him induced anxiety in me because I was like thinking about like these are things I'm past that I don't have to think about anymore. Like this last week, I hit 1 year from my top surgery, and it was like very like just okay, whatever, it's another day kind of thing. Where it's just I'm just so happy to not be dealing with that anymore that it's not even a thing. Go ahead.
So as providers and future providers, what do we expect from the trans community when they're gonna come in and try to?
I guess it just depends on what field you're
Because
in.
you know, your parents identify you as a female growing up.
Can you speak up?
Your parents or whoever identified you as a female growing up for all your stuff, so when you go to a doctor, you're going to be a female in the system.
Yes.
So how do you have to go through that process with us?
Yes. Well, so a lot of times what you're going to try and seek first is hormone therapy. And a lot of times if you're going to try and seek that out, you definitely have to change your gender marker or your name. So it's going to have to be like, okay, you get in the room and then you're like, you lay it out kind of thing. Where you're like, okay, which is really scary because you're wondering, how is this person going to react? Like, are they going to accept me? Are they going to provide me care that I need? That sort of thing. But a lot of the times what they want you to do is they want you to go to counseling for an entire year. So say you've been dealing with this, you've been struggling with this and not telling anyone for, I don't know, 7 years. And then all of a sudden you finally get yourself to the doctor, go to a doctor that's, you know, an endocrinologist, someone that can actually help you with your hormones and get you started on a journey. Because, I mean, it's not an overnight thing. Like, I've been on hormones 2 years in May, and the first year it's like nothing's happening. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you know it's going to help your dysphoria that you're feeling. And just, anyone have any questions about what dysphoria means when I'm talking about it?
Yes.
Thank you, Lee. Keep it
So it's actually called gender dysphoria. But it's any time that you're feeling unease or restlessness or discomfort with your gender identity. So it might have to do specifically with something like a physical attribute, like there's a part of your body that is triggering that dysphoria. Let's say you haven't got top surgery yet and that part really bothers you. Or it could be something as far as being, you know, not identified correctly in your gender.
Right.
Like, let's say somebody does something to you that is like very obvious they only do it to a woman, you know what I mean? Or like, something like
I can speak a little bit to Henry's situation. Henry knew a gynecologist that was willing to do his hysterectomy, and Henry was concerned about his anxiety going to that appointment, so he asked me to go with him. And Henry and I walk into the gynecologist's office and walk up to the receptionist window, and she looks at me and says, Good afternoon, ma'am. What is your name? And just assumed that I was the one checking in. And I said, no, this appointment is for my son, Henry. And it was just a moment of awkward, dumbfounded,
sort of staring at me like,
yeah, I mean, it was just, but the thing that I think is the valid point here is Henry's physician spoke to her office staff. And it was really awesome the way the office staff then changed. They called Henry, and it was also awkward too because Henry had to check in as his birth name, which is kind of a trigger, but he had to check in as his
anytime that you have to, a lot of trans people, I'm speaking from my experience only, do not like being referred to by their birth name. I mean, even writing it down, so these forms, like every little bit that you would think, the process of going to the doctor's office is like kind of like an obstacle.
So,
No, you're fine, Karen. I was gonna say, like, from a provider, because you have a really unique perspective, because you have been on both sides. You're a
Yeah.
provider and you're a parent. So I guess just from your perspective, and you can touch on this too, Henry, if you want. Like, what do you think that is the optimal situation? Is like talk to your entire staff beforehand, like make sure everybody's on the same page so that you avoid that awkwardness. Like, should there be a protocol in place for that, especially with the increasing number of people we have in trans community? Like, especially
Well, I
with-
think it can be as simple as adding a checkbox on your, instead of just male and female, let's have a checkbox. And Henry brought this up at last year's panel, which we've implemented over at the campus health clinic. On your name, simply ask for, what'd you
I
say?
didn't know you actually implemented it.
We did, we implemented what Henry suggested over at the campus health clinic. On the sign-in forms, just have a place preferred name. So, you know, I mean, your name.
Just so like, when they're getting into the room, you know, like the first thing they're saying to you isn't that thing that's like,
Yes,
Sure.
I got a question over here.
It may have depended on your provider and their bedside manner, so I'm sure it could vary, but I'm assuming that you did the counseling, when you were approached about counseling, did you take that as they care about your mental well-being, or were you offended? Is that, because I would, from a provider, think like, I want to help my patient make sure they're ready, but then you don't want it to be hurtful.
I don't know if it's actually like what's required, but I feel like it is like the norm for them to be like, okay, yeah, I'll help you, but you need to see a counselor first. And like, anytime you're saying that to someone, it is kind of like, oh, okay, you know. And it's just another hoop to jump through, really. But I actually did take that to heart, and I did go and seek out a counselor that was LGBT friendly, and I was really rewarded by the experience. I thought it was, I don't think I wasted my time doing it. And I continued to see her after getting on hormone therapy.
Did your provider
To
tell
be
you?
honest, like my endocrinologist, I traveled to Tulsa to see. She also works in Oklahoma City, but she only sees children in Oklahoma City. So I have to travel quite a bit to see her. I'm still trying to find a primary care physician. I do not have one. You guys know of anyone?
I have a person that you can go see, Bethany, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I was just telling Nikki, I worked in family medicine for a couple of years when my babies were little, and Dr. Paul Rothwell,
All right.
Bethany, Oklahoma. He had a particular patient that I remember personally that was a male to female, and
The trans woman.
trans woman, thank you, I'm still getting used to the
Yes.
pronoun. Who from childhood, the parents knew that she was a girl, and they loved that child and treated that child as a girl, and when it came puberty time, Dr. Rothwell put her on estrogen, and she's always been female. And I don't know really from there where she went and had surgery and things like that, but when I saw her, she was maybe 18 years old. She was a woman, and there was no.
What's really crazy though about, like, because it's becoming more culturally acceptable, a lot of people are gaining access to this information at a younger and younger age. And so, I mean, I'm about to be 29 in March, and like, I'm 100% a late bloomer with this stuff. Because I just started transitioning, like I said, I've only been on TE for about 2 years. And these physicians can really, these medical care providers can really help these young
Identify early.
youth kids. Get them on hormone blockers so they don't have to go through this puberty. Because, I mean, I basically went through puberty twice. I don't go through puberty again. It's not helpful.
And for those of you who might not have picked up on it, T is
Testosterone.
testosterone. That's right.
And I also ran into, like, I was talking with my friend about this last night, like, I ran into more people that I thought I would that actually are confused about, like, hormone replacement therapy, and think that it's, like, steroids or something, like, they think I'm on steroids.
You said like what everybody thinks steroids.
Did you have a question back there?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, I'm from Minnesota. I worked at a pretty big hospital there, and me and my mom were on the LGBTQ panel. And we've implemented on Epic, what we use for our, hospital
Yeah.
charts, that you are able to identify who you are and what your preferred name would be and your gender identity. So if it's not here yet, just know that people are working hard to do it.
That's awesome. Yes. I saw a question.
How what makes it difficult to find a primary care physician? Like, do you try to call and make an appointment for something and they tell you no?
No, as far as that goes, I kind of been, that's a little bit on me, like not trying to find one, and kind of has a little bit to do with my access to your mom. Just a little bit, but I am relatively healthy, so that I do have that. But everyone should have one, right? I mean, everyone should have one. Definitely. But as far as other physicians, like trying to get care through there, like for instance, when mom went with me to that gynecologist appointment, that was the second one I tried. I had already gone to Norman, and so I was trying to get it covered through insurance. And so what I learned later on that was something that would be covered through my insurance, and I didn't first think that was going to happen. So that was the big thing with that, was getting someone that also knew how to jump through the insurance hoops with me. That was
To code it properly.
so their staff could help me enough.
Yeah, so you can't, it sounds pretty basic, but you can't have a hysterectomy if you're a male. Does that make sense? And that was part of the insurance.
Yes, and actually what we ended up doing is we had to do the timing right on my gender marker change as well. So we had to wait until after I had had the hysterectomy before changing my gender marker for insurance purposes, to make sure that it got covered by insurance. So there's no way I could get have that, because I mean, paying it off forever.
I saw one more question in the front here.
Yeah. Couple things. I have a son, and his first name's Elsie, and he had tubes put in his ears like a year ago. But the nursing staff and all the doctors called him her. Well, and he has a pink alligator that he holds onto. So, like, his name is Elsie. We call him Proof, but his name is Elsie. He had a pink alligator and his little bonnet on. So the whole time it's, is she okay? Or she did fine? Or, and everybody we came in contact with, I said, he's a boy. This is my son.
Yeah.
And so I get that is totally frustrating because, which I was like, just kind of rolled with it. Like I wasn't getting like mad or anything, but I was like, he's he, you know, and so at the end, they would like give us feedback, and I was like, well, my kid's a boy, and we called him her all day long. And so I've kind of experienced that, but then like on your side of it, do you feel like that you can and are understanding to providers that don't quite get it? Like, I'm from a tiny town of like, I mean, everybody is white,
you don't know about something until you learn about it.
yeah, and so, like, stuff you're saying, I'm like, whew, I have no idea what he's talking about. And,
Like, for instance, in that office, where she was like, okay, that doctor, physician, excellent, I would definitely recommend her. She went outside and explained to all of our staff, okay, so we haven't ever run into this before. We're running into this now, you know? This is what's gonna happen. This is what he wants, and this is, you know, what we need to call him, and everyone's like, okay, all right. But I feel like if I wasn't of open mind and like patient about the experience, I also felt very comfortable because my mom was there.
right.
That I probably would have thought like, oh, I'm like the spotlight's like on me, you know what I mean, like for her whole staff. But all I'm thinking is the next person that comes through their doors that's trans is going to have a better experience than I had. Because she was able to use me to teach everyone on her staff, and they're all like, okay. And like, I mean, they were just super nice, and like, it wasn't an outpatient procedure, you know, having a hysterectomy. I had to stay the night in hospital, and that starting baseline of her dealing with her staff trickled down into the next staff that I worked with, and they were awesome as well. No one misgendered me there. Everything was groovy. I mean, it's weird. You're in a hospital, you know. I
So
mean,
do you think that you would, I mean, say it was reversed and they didn't like embrace it as quickly or as well?
yeah, I have experienced the
That you
opposite.
would be
and
like,
it's-
I understand that
It's pins and
you're
needles,
coming
you know.
up slower, you know?
Yes.
You know,
Because I would be that person.
the physician had spoken with their staff, and then it came to the point in the visit where the physician needed to do a physical exam on Henry, so Henry asked me to step out. And as soon as I stepped out, the staff was all over me like, tell us more about this. What do you tell us.
They were really eager to learn.
They're eager to learn once you expose them to it, I mean, I think the majority of people are interested.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool because Henry had already had his top surgery, and you're like, what's that look like? So I got pulled up Henry's Instagram and showed him pictures of his, huh?
What is top surgery?
Top surgery is basically a double mastectomy
Okay, so
with
It's
a
just-
nipple,
It's just-
reconstruction.
It's just a shortened way to say that, so that you're not going to say anything that has to do with,
Body parts that might trigger. Yes?
Is there oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
waited for this question a while, so bear with me, I'm gonna go back a while.
Okay.
I guess maybe it's a more broad question, not just to you, but maybe the providers also know from experience. You mentioned having to have counseling for a year, and I'm dumbfounded by that because, say for example, a patient came in and was complaining of depression, something that they feel, and you would write a prescription for. Why is that?
It's in the DSM. It's a medical disorder. It's still in the DSM. Just as homosexuality was, I don't know how long ago, but it's still in there. So they are still treating it as though it's like a mental disorder.
I think you pulled it out in the 70s, homosexuality
Yeah.
around the 70s, I think. I have to look that up.
So we're getting there. I mean, I think eventually the stigma will change with it to where people won't look at you like you're. Like,
And it might be more of a regional thing.
Yeah, and I was talking about it being, in a conservative state, there are.
And it might be more of just a way for the physician to ensure that it's not some type of a willy-nilly, this is really trendy, kind of thing. So, I mean, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't get it.
It's like the same setup as like when I went to change my ID, I had to provide a notarized letter from a physician saying that words like irreversible and permanent. And the state of Oklahoma requires that some more language along those lines is in that letter saying that, like, I'm not going to decide to, it's like, well, the process was pretty fucking difficult. I think especially with changing things like legally, that process was extremely difficult and people were not as friendly. And to me, like, it's already bad enough the medical side, but that dealing with the government agencies and all of that was much harder.
Well, in the late